from painting with watercolors to painting with gouache is especially difficult, but with these tips and solutions, it will be far easier for you. Now, if you're familiar with my videos that teach artists how to start writing, you may be wondering how this video would be relevant to you. Well, with AI comics and graphic novels, I feel as though traditional art is one of the best ways for you to assure your audience that your work is human-made. Let's jump right in. The biggest issue that watercolor artists face when transitioning into gouache would be their thoughts while layering. When you paint with watercolor, you go from light to dark, but gouache is the opposite, where you go dark to light. Watercolor, you can't remove color once it's down, so there's lots of forethought while painting in layers, thinking about how the layers are going to look when they're placed down and how they're going to interact with the previous layers. Whereas with gouache, you swap forethought and layers with color value. You start with the darkest colors because you want to accurately depict the proper values for each color in your illustration. To fix this, instead of thinking about layers in succession with one another, think more about values on a value scale. You want to start placing your darkest colors first, then work your way up the value scale, and train your eye to focus on the color value in relation to all of the other colors. The second issue is estimating the right hydration level. With watercolors, you want to see the paper and layers beneath your wash of color, but gouache is the opposite. An overhydrated wash will melt into the background until it's invisible. For this issue, I have two solutions. The first is you want to keep your palette wet. I like to keep a spray bottle nearby, that way I can spritz my palette to keep it moist during my painting process. The second solution is looking for the correct texture rather than thinking about the correct amount of water. I like to go for a room temperature coconut oil type of texture, because with coconut oil, when you touch it at room temperature, it's a solid, but if you start to mix it around in your fingers and move it around, then it becomes a bit of a thick liquid, and your gouache should be the same texture. It should feel a little bit chunky and clumpy when it's on your brush, but when you begin to mix it around on your palette, it should kind of mold into more of a thick liquid. And this segues perfectly into the third issue, which is you're using the wrong paint brushes. When artists are experimenting, most of us want to use what we already have, so if you began as a watercolor artist, you're probably using your watercolor paint brushes and wondering why everything that you paint looks very smushy, muddy, overblended, and you feel like you have zero control over your washes. The best way to explain this is looking at the brushes themselves. You have soft bristles that kind of do their own thing on the page. Then you have firm bristles that behave with more precision. Then regarding the structure of the brush itself, you have low snap brushes that are going to spread as you create a wash on the page. And then you have high snap brushes that are going to follow a very precise line. So the solution to this issue is save your soft bristle, low snap brushes for large washes because they'll hold more water and cover more space more efficiently, and use high snap firm bristle brushes for precise lines or detail work. Oh my god. Gabby, stop standing in that. The last issue is that you're not used to using white and black to lighten and darken your colors. In watercolor, you're going to use water to lighten your colors and then use less water and a complementary color to darken or mute your colors. Doing this in gouache will result in poor texture. So the best solution is to just skip using water altogether. And before you even begin your painting, you should do a pre-painting paint mixing and swatching. Doing this allows you to build the palette for your painting practice mixing your colors without water, and get familiar with finding the correct texture for your gouache paints, all without the added pressure of ruining your painting. Those are all of my tips for today. If this has resolved the hurdles that you faced with learning gouache and you want to make a studying habit, check out my Gamified Notion template, where you make a character and play as them, completing quests, which are your project goals, and unlocking unique rewards in the process. Be sure to tune in tomorrow because I'll be teaching 1 through 5 point perspective in 10 minutes or less. Thanks for watching. Bye!